Welcome to Granny's Legacy Patterns. Today we are teaching the cast on beaded blanket stitch, and it's a fancy stitch on the edge of our P.S. I Love You project, and we will just dig right in. It's a fun way to finish the edge of your piece to give it just a little bit extra pizzazz. So I have threaded my needle and I've knotted the two ends together, so I have two double threaded needles. So there's two threads, virtually just one thread through the needle, but it creates two threads. So when working with two threads like this, it's nice to start at the knotted end and just kind of work your thread up to the needle a couple times. And that'll make sure that your threads are playing together. You not have one side longer than the other. The other suggestion I have is to run it through some thread wax. That's always handy when you have two threads because they also play together easier if they're waxed. So I have two threads and I'm ready to start my project. So as always with any blanket stitch, I'm coming up from the back of my project, coming through the two layers, and I've already started it, so I'm going to come up right in the knot from the last stitch I did. So I'm right in the center of that knot. Does that show on the camera? The needle coming up in that knot? Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm going to pull that up and through. And then we're ready to start. Now this is a beaded blanket stitch, and we happened to do every other stitch a bead, so we have a bead here. So this is a regular blanket stitch. So you just do your normal blanket stitch, and before you pull it up tight, so the thread is behind the needle, just like you would with any blanket stitch. Shall I turn a little bit, Steve? Can you see better now? Mm-hmm. I do a little cast on with my finger. So just like cast on with knitting, the thread is on top of your finger. Give it a little twist and put that loop over your needle. Easier said than done, I guess. Okay, cast on and just pull that loop right onto your needle. And you just snug it right down onto your project like that. And once you get it, my finger is right on top of that cast on stitch, I'm going to put my thumb on it to hold it in place and then pull my thread through. And when you pull your thread through, get your normal blanket stitch with this cute little knot on the end. Now I'm going to pick up a bead because my next one is the bead stitch. So I have a regular blanket stitch and then a bead stitch. So I'm going to put the bead on down the thread. So I have my bead sitting there. Now I do it just like a blanket stitch. So down and back up again with the thread behind the needle. And then the cast on, so the thread is on top of my finger. I just twist my finger and bring that loop right on the top of the needle. Whoops. Right on the top of the needle. So I pulled that little knot right there. I've got my finger underneath of it, my thumb on top of it to hold it in place, and pull my thread through, and it creates a little knot on the end of the blanket stitch. Okay, blanket stitch is next. Down in, thread behind, cast on, so thread on the pad of your finger, just give it a little twist and put it on top of the needle. Now keep your needle going. You'll want this to be parallel, sticking straight out, otherwise your stitches will go one way or the other. Hold it with your thumb, pull it up tight, and you have a little blanket stitch with a knot on it. Bead, pick up a bead, blanket stitch, thread always behind the needle on the blanket stitch, thread on the finger pad, give a little twist, come back down, hold your knot, and pull your thread through. So that is the beaded cast on blanket stitch.